Welcome to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned leaders in the quick service restaurant industry. Each week, we serve up actionable insights and proven strategies to help you lead smarter, build stronger teams, and elevate operations. Whether you're taking your first steps into leadership or refining your expertise, we're here to fuel your growth and spark big ideas. Let's dig in.
Hey, it's good to see you again, Riley.
Hey, how's it going, Eric? How are you?
Good. Oh, man, so good. I am so excited about today's episode.
Are you?
I am. We're on episode 4 already.
We are.
Yeah.
Episode 4. It is, just incredible how long this is. We got it. We started doing this, and now we're here. And you can see we've changed a few things, and don't worry, it'll change again probably for those of you who are watching on YouTube or whatever. You know, our setup is changing. We're learning as we go.
You know it too. So we've already had the opportunity to talk a little bit about mindset, right? Putting yourself first, motivation. And today's episode, like I said, I'm super excited about. We're really going to be talking about setting clear visions and goals, and setting a GPS.
A GPS.
Yeah.
I don't really use those. I just kind of go.
Oh, do you?
I just let the mind take me wherever I'm driving, or I just remember where I'm going.
Sure.
I don't necessarily need to set the GPS every time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, setting a GPS can really keep you on track. And I'm going to explain a little bit why as to how that helps us in our everyday world.
I'm excited.
Especially at the restaurants. We were taking a road trip. Nikki, I, and our youngest 2 girls, we went to South Dakota over the summer. And we had no idea. I have no idea where I'm going, right? So I had to use the GPS, Riley.
Definitely.
Okay,
definitely
I had to.
Have to use it for those types of road trips. Absolutely.
It's fun. Side story. When I first started working in this area, we didn't have GPSs in the cars yet, right? So
the maps.
Yeah, my first day going to work, I'm like, okay, I know where I'm going, and I was completely lost. I showed up to work as a supervisor for these restaurants 2 hours late, and the general manager, I had some explaining to do, and I ended up getting a GPS that night, so that way I never got lost again.
There you go.
But yeah, so we were taking this trip to South Dakota, and we live in Rockford, Illinois, so it was quite the trip. Lots of planning, right? We had to know where we were going. We had to make sure everything was packed. Well, Nikki, my wife, made sure we had
everything to pack. Yep.
But anytime that we in the restaurants, right, we really need to know where we're going. And like I said, when we were going to South Dakota, we knew where we wanted to be, but we didn't necessarily know exactly how we were going to get there. And we did a lot of planning, right? You book the hotels, you get the reservations, you get the rooms. You maybe have some ideas in mind, right? Like we want to see Mount Rushmore, we want to see, Crazy Horse, we want to see the Black Hills. There's certain things that you want to do, and you need to manage your time for that. So we were getting everything together. We got in the car, right? We had everybody packed. We got the car full of gas, right? So you don't have to stop right away. No bathroom breaks, right? We got to get there.
Drive through the night.
Exactly. And then we get on the road, and literally an hour and a half into the trip, all of a sudden we encountered construction.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, as we set the destination, we already have a pit stop. We just started, and all of a sudden this is going to delay things, right? It's traffic's all backed up, and now we need to account for that. And as well as I do, that attitudes can shift dramatically as soon as we encounter any sort of barrier. So
roadblocks, barriers, construction, literally,
Yeah.
You encounter that. And the other day, they're doing a bunch of work in Rockford, like you said, on I-90 and 39, and every time I get on that road, there's always a bottleneck, and it always slows down for 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I know it's going to be short, but I power through. But when you don't know how long it's going to be, it can really change your mood.
Oh, man, for sure. And, the kids start getting crabby, right? So we start getting crabby, and then that can lead into, okay, let's not go that route. But, there's detours along the way on any destination that you go. And preparing yourself for those situations, having a game plan, knowing where you want to go and how you want to get there can really ease the stress of that. And anytime that there's a detour, anytime that there was those pit stops, we already knew, right, we need to get to South Dakota. So it's easy enough to get back on track. It's easy enough to get back on the road and say, okay, let's reset our destination. The GPS kind of tells you, right? Like, hey, it's going to go here, you can go there, or hey, circle back, take a U-turn, or whatever it might say. So a GPS can really keep the destination top of mind. And at a restaurant level, with our leadership, I think setting the course, right, having a clear vision and clear goals is something that we really just don't do very often.
Because we're always, we're in customer service mode. We're serving. We get stuck in those modes where we're just focused on, I'm going to say it again, putting food in a bag, and so that goal or that vision can get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it gets lost really easily in the everyday shuffle, right? So I'm going to tell you, too, I didn't always believe that having that vision or those goals was really even a thing, right? Like, we would do it. Every year, they always say, okay, let's do your business planning, right? Let's check the box. And it really just became a check-the-box type thing. Okay, they want us to make profit, right? They want us to have the speed, right? We want to maybe raise our customer satisfaction scores. Like, whatever those few things are, cool, let's put it on there, let's hang it up, and then we'll
wallpaper
change it next year. But it becomes wallpaper. So I think just how do we take that wallpaper and actually put it into action, right? How do we believe in our vision, our goals? How do we get to South Dakota, right, without maybe as many detours as we want, or at least knowing that we wanted to get there and we can get back on track?
Yeah.
So when we look at that, and we look at setting our business goals, are we setting relevant goals that actually mean something to us? And for the last couple of years, I've been starting to do it where it's more for us rather than a check-the-box thing, like actually doing it and saying, okay, this is where we want to be. New Year's resolutions, right? It's been a month.
It has.
Yeah.
We're a month into the new year.
Right? So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have to remind myself that I have a New Year's resolution sometimes.
It's easy to forget sometimes those resolutions that you put in, but when you have that clear vision and you have that, I think in previous episodes we mentioned vision boards.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched those, go check those out. Mindset, put yourself first, and motivation. You have to constantly remind yourself. You have to consistently talk about those goals and keep it clear and concise. Right. And people like New Year's resolutions, they'll do like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And guess what? They don't do any of them. At least I don't. I'm like, I want to do all these things better. And then I don't accomplish any of them because they're not necessarily clear and they're not necessarily concise. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or you're not seeing it, right? I think that's part of it too. Like, you go to the gym, like New Year's, right? Everybody starts going to the gym, January, February. You see a lot of new faces, and then by end of February, March, it's the same core people that are back at the gym.
Because Riley's gone.
Well, this is the year that it sticks,
yes,
right?
This
is the year that we set clear visions and goals, and we stick to them, because I do believe that this will help us in the future. But we don't always see, I guess, the product of what we're doing initially. So when you don't see the progress, when you don't see the numbers maybe coming to you, think about like working out, right? Like, it takes time for our bodies to, I guess, show what it
show
is.
that effort and to see those results essentially.
And that can really take away from your effort, right? Like, all of a sudden, like, when you don't see it, you don't know if it's working. And I just believe that having those clear, concise goals and having everybody on the same page as far as where you want to go, right, is only going to make that trip a lot easier. The kids knew we were going to South Dakota, right?
Yeah.
There are so many stops along the way when it comes down to it. There's all the tourist traps.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Or the world's largest truck stop or something like that.
And you have to go, right? The corn maze and, all these different toy shops or billboards that advertise all these things. So there's a lot of distractions in the world that can really easily pull you off. And you might get stuck there longer than you want. And that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you go back to your vision? How do you go back and say, okay, yep, I need to, and our team needs to get back on the same page, and here's where we're going.
Right. Well, and I think, in the restaurant world, no call, no shows, or call offs, or, things like that, or even bad customers can really put a damper on that day, on that shift, or even that whole week, because you have somebody come in and they're angry and then you talk about that person for the rest of the week. Like, oh my gosh, did you see Jim Bob? He came in here and whatever. So it's important to let those pit stops, let those distractions happen, because we can't control those. They're out of our control. Somebody's got to call off for this, or they're sick and they can't come in. Things happen, and it's okay to feel that and get off track for a second, but don't live there. You got to get back on track.
Yeah, and we have a hard time, I think, sometimes not living there in the negativity.
Because it's easy to.
It really can be. But as the leader of the restaurant or the leader of the shift, it's our responsibility to take that negativity,
Absolutely.
maybe live in it for a moment, but don't allow it to dictate the rest of your shift, your day, or your goals. And as a leader, sharing those goals, right, will only help us avoid confusion. Because if you're focused on running the fastest and all of a sudden your leader comes in and says, no, you weren't supposed to be doing that, you're supposed to be doing this, can really create a lot of that conflict.
What are we working on today?
I mean, we've been in the restaurants for a long time, Riley, and we've worked with restaurant leaders for a long time here. And communication usually boils down to, or the issues around people usually boils down to just the communication of the expectations.
Yep.
And by setting a clear vision with goals and sticking on that can really help avoid a lot of that confusion and that conflict.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we take that seriously enough at times, right? And I know I always haven't in the past, because we used to talk about, like, okay, we have to have all these different spinning plates. Like, everything always has to be going.
Yep.
Right? But we're most successful when we focus really on just one major task at a time. And I know, we can always talk more about it, but the wildly important goals have really helped us as an organization be successful long term.
Is that WIG?
It is. It is. I love the WIGs, right?
The WIGs.
I know a couple of years ago, right, we really went all out on our WIGs.
Yeah.
And we were trying to be we had talked about breakfast speed a lot. Breakfast speed, breakfast speed, breakfast speed. And we wanted to get that to be like tying our shoes. And we talked about it. We hung signs up. We said, hey, here's where we want to go. Here's what we want to do. And we hung up the wallpaper. And we said, okay, well, because we hung up the sign, everyone's going to do it.
I wish.
Oh, man.
I wish wallpaper worked that way.
Yeah. Like, I hung up the sign. Everyone's on the same page. Let's go. Right. But we have to do more than just set the destination too, right? Like, we have to have the destination, and we have to get our team pulling in the same direction. And we have to make it where they have the tools and resources needed to be successful.
Absolutely. And I think too, with the WIGs, the wildly important goal, once you get the team pulling in the same direction and you can communicate that to them, then all of a sudden you might see other things change as well.
Yeah.
Because remember, when we focused on that, our customer satisfaction got better too. So by focusing on one thing and doing that one thing really, really well, like tying your shoes, now all of a sudden these other things are kind of becoming to get propped up. And then when you move the WIG to that, now all of a sudden this one's a little easier to prop up, and then you rinse and repeat.
Yeah. In the fast food world, it's always the shiniest object, right? Like, we're always distracted by what's shiny. But when we sit and we focus and we keep our destination in mind, our organization's been able to accomplish just amazing things. Like, and it's become like tying our shoes. Breakfast speed, it's just the culture now. People walk into our restaurants as a new hire or an employee or from a different shift or whatever it may be, and literally breakfast speed is just, it's tying your shoes. I don't have to think about it anymore. And that's what we want for our processes and the routines that we have in place. We want it to be like tying your shoes, so we don't have to think about it, so we can focus on other issues or concerns that we may have within the restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, wildly important goals. I know we'll unpack that. I'm sure there's more episodes that we'll have in the future.
Stay
on
tuned
that.
for those.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite things.
They're so exciting.
Having goals, right, and a clear vision and building the culture is just. It's one of those things. It's a greens fees to, in my opinion, being an actual leader instead of a manager. And this doesn't have to be like always a 3 to 6 month thing. Like,
right.
you might be running a shift, right? Like, you might just have that 4, 5, 6 hour shift where it's like, hey, if you set some goals, if you set some priorities and you talk to your team about those things, you can have the same effect as a long-term goal. So it doesn't matter your position, in my opinion. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing or what you're operating at this point. Having that destination for your team, for yourself, right? Speaking of New Year's
know where you're
resolutions,
going. Yeah.
just that will get you there. And celebrate the successes along the way, because the trip to South Dakota was like a 15-hour road trip. And I'm going to tell you, if we didn't chunk that out, if we didn't accomplish a few things along the way, like, have you ever been driving? It's like, 400 miles to go.
And it's just dread.
You just it drags on.
Yeah.
And how do you keep the motivation behind
Yeah.
that? Well, that's where, hey, we'll stop when we get to 300. We'll go grab a bite to eat at 200. We'll go do this at 100. Now you have some checkpoints to look forward to.
Yep.
And I think that's something that we also have to just do better at.
It's stopping for those checkpoints.
And celebrating.
Yeah,
those things.
celebrating. Refueling, essentially. Like, hey, let's stop. Let's get some gas, get some food.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with your team. Hey, this is where we're at with our target. We've made this much progress in the last 3 hours, related to a shift, of course.
Yeah.
And here's what we got to do to keep going and to hit this goal and all that good stuff. So, communicating, stopping for those refueling things, and just keep going at it.
Yeah. I love what you said. It's the refueling, it's the energy, it's the celebrating the checkpoints along the way. And I'm not always the greatest at that. I'm going to tell you. I have to work hard every day to remind myself to do those things. So I just don't know if it comes naturally to everybody.
Yeah, and I don't think it does either. Because I think, back to just bouncing around a little bit, but the negativity, right? Like when those things happen that aren't in your control, how are you going to celebrate, when things do go right? We talked about the bad customer. One customer comes in and you feel how you feel about it, and then all of a sudden your mood is ruined for the rest of the day. Your team's mood is ruined because morale and as leaders, our mood, our energy matters in the restaurant to customers and to crew. But are you going to have that moment ruin the experience for the rest of the day or the other 800 people that we might serve on average?
Yeah.
Again, it's okay to live in that, but make sure we don't stay there for too long.
Yeah, you definitely just don't want to. The success that we're able to have by focusing on common goals and having a clear vision is just, don't take it lightly, right? If you're sitting here thinking, okay, well, that sounds great. Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, I can put, an action plan together and have some goals, and I've done that before. Well, just do it with a better intent this time. Do it with the intent of making it for yourself, with your company's maybe vision in mind, right? Because I know we always want to be aligned on what our company is looking for, and we definitely want to work towards those things. So just working with your leadership, working with your team, right? Setting those visions, setting those expectations, providing the tools and resources for your team to get the job accomplished, I think just by far will help us be successful, no matter what we do or how we do it.
Yeah. Staying aligned and making sure everybody's on the same page, pulling the same direction.
Absolutely. This is great. I 100% love the conversation around this. Take the time. Like I said, I'm sure we'll have more episodes as far as how to do these and how to set some objectives. It's not always the easiest thing. Sometimes we just don't take the time to really do it, or we throw darts at the wall and say, okay, let's go here. Let's really think about it this time.
Yeah.
If you don't have a New Year's resolution or you got off of it, it might be time to readdress that and say, okay, let's do this for real this time.
Hey, January is the trial month of the year. The free trial is January.
Yeah.
So, February 1st, reset.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we got a few more days until February 1st,
Yeah.
so that gives us some time. The other last thing I would just share before we maybe conclude today is once you have those goals, once you have that vision, whether it's personal or professional, share that. Share that with as many people as you can, because the more we share, the more we talk about it, the more I think we're going to keep that top of mind, and the more people are going to be able to remind us and help us get there. So this doesn't have to be an alone thing.
Absolutely.
It's 100% okay to share these with people. It's okay to realign once in a while. It's okay to have detours. It's okay to have a flat tire, but just refuel and get back on the road.
Yeah. And like Eric just said, bring people with you. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thanks for being here today, guys. Our GPS is set on success. I don't know about you, but we're ready to have a good 2025. So set your plan, communicate it with your team, and hit the road.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for joining us on Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. We hope today's episode inspired fresh ideas for your leadership journey. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and keep learning with us as we continue to explore leadership in the QSR world. Until next time, take care and lead well.